Daniel chapter 4. It's been a week, all week long. I'm telling you. Oh, Lord, we're starting a new one. The subject again is pride. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, was responsible for building that empire. He inherited the throne from his father, Nebuchadnezzar. Once Nebuchadnezzar became the real king, he conquered. He did all kinds of improvements, built palaces, built walls, etc. He would reign for a number of years, and then in chapter 5, when we get to that next week, Belshazzar is his grandson. You'll see the characteristics is inherited apparently by this family. So Nebuchadnezzar has another dream. We found one dream earlier, and apparently God did not get through to Nebuchadnezzar. So there was a troubling dream that he had one night. The text that I read earlier is about this tree, and the dream is basically the tree is the empire, and many people depended on it, speaking of the branches and the beast under it and the fowls of the air. So there was total control. When Nebuchadnezzar had this dream, some years later, because he was in power for over 40 years. So just because you go from chapter 2 to 3 and 4 doesn't mean it's the next day, the next day, the next day. So Nebuchadnezzar had this dream, and he called the magicians, the Chaldeans, etc., and then Daniel shows up. And he is asked to interpret this dream. Now, this puts Daniel in a precarious position. Like us preachers, we do not enjoy giving bad news. We don't wake up on Sunday morning and decide that we're going to preach about your sin. So don't take it personal. Daniel, on the other hand, had a history of telling Nebuchadnezzar the truth, and he will so again. If you will now look with me to verse 24. And he said, "This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree from the Most High, which is upon my Lord the king, that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling will be in the beast of with the beast of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as an oxen does. And they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass," or 7 years will pass while he's out there like that. 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou knows that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. Whereas they commanded to leave the stump, or a remnant of the kingdom, shall be sure unto thee after that thou shalt have known that the heavens do rule. Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto you, and break away from your sins by righteousness, your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, that if it may be lengthening of thy tranquility." Verse 28, "And all this came upon Nebuchadnezzar at the end of 12 months. He walked into the palace of Babylon." Have you ever recognized the fact that God gave you notice? Has there ever been a point in your life when you knew that something was not right and God granted mercy for a period of time until He didn't? This was Nebuchadnezzar's plight. He had had the dream. Daniel had interpreted it. And for 12 months, Nebuchadnezzar thought about what the sermon was about. 12 months came and went. And at the end of that 12-month period, Nebuchadnezzar walked into the palace one day and lost his mind. Now that may have been what we would think some type of dementia or Alzheimer's. We don't know. But we do know that he was crazy. His mind had gone to the point that he let his hair grow very long. As the book says, his hair became like eagle's feathers, all choppy and long, lengthy and smelly and nasty. And his fingernails was like the claws of an animal. And naturally, being in that state of mind, the guy that had wore the gold and the silver, the crown and the robes, was out there with nothing. Says he eat grass like the beast of the field or like the oxen. That's where he slept. That's how he got his provision. And for that period of 7 years, 7 long years, family watched him. His underlings watched him. And you'll notice that they did not take the kingdom away from him, because his son, Belshazzar's father, was co-regent or the prince in waiting. And so while Nebuchadnezzar was in that state of mind, people were afraid to do anything to him. It's said that when Stalin was in his office, it was apparent that he died, but everyone was so afraid to approach him. And they let him in that position of being dead. Nobody would come in because of the fear that they had for him. That's pretty much, somebody did get brave, by the way, but that's pretty much the way Nebuchadnezzar, I would have viewed this situation. All powerful, ruler of the known world, the empire builder, the hanging gardens of Babylon creator, all of that, and they left him out there for 7 years, and then one day his mind come back to him. Now, there's a couple of things I want to show you in this. And the first one, let's talk about the obvious subject. Nebuchadnezzar had pride. And it wasn't so much about how he looked, although that was part of it. His pride brought him destruction, and his pride was all about himself. Now, it's ironic in the day that we live that there is an organization called pride. I think it's the height of arrogance. And let me tell you what it means. I can't never remember. It is the promotion of self-affirmation, dignity, and equality. I believe with all of my heart they could have found another word, but it fits. It fits. Because we live in a day when everybody is right. Right about their views on gender, right about their views on marriage, right about their views in politics. By the way, our president didn't make any points last week appearing in that post looking like Jesus Christ. That's what pride does to you. It makes you lose your stinking mind. And assuming that we can change the climate, I think that's the second highest arrogance. To say that we can stop the climate from changing. And Thessaloniki, just inside of Algeria, there are cave drawings of pastoral pictures. And in that drawing, it shows the Sahara Desert with cattle, with giraffes, with elephants, with scenic views of trees and grass. They date it to about 4,000 years ago. Eastern Sudan, similar drawings on rock formations, showing that at one time the Sahara Desert was a garden. But because of the change of weather and the circumstance, the Sahara today is a desert. It once had 600 feet of water in the Death Valley. 100 miles long of Death Valley was a ocean, a river, a lake, whatever. And we think that we can change the climate. What happened to turn the Sahara Desert? Did they talk on their cell phones too much? Did camels pass gas? What? What changed there? We wasn't even in the arena at that particular time. Just a few million people on the face of the earth 4,000 years ago. And now today in our society, we can change the climate. I have news for everybody. We cannot change climate. If anything is going to happen, look up when you get home, wobbly earth or the earth axis shift. And what the earth has done over thousands of years, it has shifted on its axis. It goes through this shift periodically to where it'll go way over one side and then come back to the other in its rotation on its axis. But Nebuchadnezzar was prideful just like many in our society are today. And when you talk about pride, naturally, we can see it in others. We can look at an individual and pick out the prideful ones. We can easily say, yeah, that guy is too proud. Well, too proud and just plain proud are the same thing. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 16 and 7 through 19 tells us what God says. He said these 6 things are abomination, and the 7th is deadly. But the first one on that list in verse 16 is a proud look. What does a proud look like? What do we see? Let me just give you these examples. Pride's mentioned in the Bible over 50 times. What does pride do? How does it look? Well, pride will always promote itself, ignore others, and we are able to see it in others, but we're unable to see it in ourselves. When you and I take an examination of our spiritual walk, the first area that we need to look at is, are we proud? And if you come to me and say, preacher, I'm the most humble person I know, that's being proud. So don't tell me that after church. But what does it mean to be proud? Let me give you a few things here. Pride assumes that we can do everything ourselves. Now that goes as a society, as I just mentioned, that we can change the weather, or that we can change the gender of people, or that we can accomplish all of these great feats. It's wonderful to know that we are back to the moon and going around the dark side of the moon, as Pink Floyd sang. But when you think about those accomplishments, didn't we get smacked in the face for a period of time? Wasn't there that moment when we had to back off? Now, when Daniel is addressing the king, he wanted him to understand that, King, you've said you've done it yourself. And although he was the king and the ruler, he did not do it himself, because Daniel said it is the God, the Most High God, that allowed you to be the king of this empire. So pride tells me that I can do everything myself. Pride also is about getting your way above everything else. Individuals that are proud are very determined to get their way in matters of life. It may be this and it may be that. It may be having your way at this discussion, or it may be having your way at work, your spouse, your child, etc. Be very careful about the subject of pride, because a proud person, most of the time, is interested in getting their way. Pushing through no matter what the cost is to others. Nebuchadnezzar made many people suffer. There is that one point where Daniel talks about him oppressing the poor. Nebuchadnezzar wanted his way above everything else. And this is very common, by the way, among all of us. It's not exclusive to politicians and pastors. It's all of us as we examine our life, because of this one thing. A prideful person places more value on ourselves than we do others' ability or decision. The third thing is that pride always wants others to see and to know what we have done. You know, those things that you do in private, God sees it. Those things that you do when nobody is even looking at you. That's the time when God recognizes that we don't need any publicity. We don't need anyone to know what we have accomplished or what we have done. And unfortunately, there is more of that today in America than probably in any other generation known to man. Because other generations of Americans have had to do something. They did not call the great generation, the generation of World War II, the great generation for no reason. Because I'm sure you know people, as I do, that didn't talk about their service. Sometimes they would address it if it was brought up. Sometimes they didn't want to talk about it because of PTSD. But they would not say what they did. An old man had passed away, and his daughter asked me to come to the house and visit with her mother. So I go, and her mother is getting ready for the funeral, and she said, "Preacher, after he died this morning, we started looking for some items that he kept private." And she said, "He would not let us look in this lockbox. And I don't know what's in it, but I want you to be here when we open it." And I said, "Okay." So she opened it. Inside was a Purple Heart, a Bronze Star, and a few other decorations. And get this, his daughter didn't even know he'd been in the army. Now that says a great deal. Even with PTSD, I'd still show you my Purple Heart. But that gentleman from that generation, they were obliging. They were that group of people that would let others have their way, even though maybe they did not agree with it. But we live now in a society where we're ready to lose our cool over anything. But they would not let others know. The fourth thing is this. A prideful person lives like there is no God. Because a prideful person does not have room in their life for anyone else. It's all about them. It's all about what they want, what they like, what this is and what that is. But a proud person like Nebuchadnezzar, he heard the sermon. He thought on it for 12 long months. He saw Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah delivered from the fiery furnace, and he said, everybody in the kingdom will worship the Most High of these men. But guess what? He never surrendered himself. He was all about sending the kids to Sunday school, but he wasn't interested in it himself. You ever noticed how that individual is always making noise about somebody else and what somebody else needs to do? Being a pastor as long as I have, I've had a number of people tell me how I need to do what I do. I've been used to it, so it's really not a big... I don't think most of them are prideful. They're just in their own lane. They just stayed in theirs, you know. But when you and I are prideful, we don't have room for God. It may be just in that moment, that day, that week, but we don't want to have God inside. And the fifth thing is, a prideful person will fail to surrender to God's will in their lives. Nebuchadnezzar had 12 long months. How many months have you had to surrender to God's will about whatever it is? You see, it's being a proud person or having pride in our life. It's not about wearing expensive clothes and diamonds and all kinds of fancy things and the big mansion and the fine car, etc. That's not a symbol of pride, although that is found in a proud person. But a prideful person is not willing to surrender to God's will for their own life. And yes, we as Christians can be that way. We as Christians can decide, this is what I'm going to do, and I don't care what happens. This other stuff not going to matter because I'm going to do what I want to do, irregardless of what God's will is for us. Get on to this one now. Number 6. Pride is judgmental. What does that look like? Well, a proud person will find fault in others, in circumstances, in situations, and will hold to that judgmental concept throughout their entire life. Again, going back to Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar said to all the people, now we've seen the miracle of the fiery furnace. All of you people give reverence, give honor to the God of the Israelis. worship him. But Nebuchadnezzar didn't do it himself because, being a judgmental individual, we do not like anything that is not the way we want it to be. You know, we can be judgmental by saying, well, they need to do more of this. They need to have more of this. They need to get this done. This is what would be important, etc., so forth. And so judgmental people will find fault with everybody else but themselves. Let me share this. I'm about done. Yesterday, one day this week, I had to go to the pharmacy to pick up some medicine for all this mess. And I got there at 9 o'clock. Oh, it was yesterday morning, 9 o'clock. They open at 9 o'clock. Well, they're supposed to open at 9 o'clock. So there's 3 or 4 people that got there before I did. The young folks was unlocking and putting this and moving all this. The pharmacist come in. And the first person walked up and started berating. You're supposed to be open at 9 o'clock. Here it is, 9:05. I've been standing here. And I thought, I wonder if my church family, if any of them sound like that. I did. I thought, boy, you're being an embarrassment to the cause of Christ. The second person, you know, they got those screens. I love them. You touch it and then you put your name in. And if you're not named Damon, you don't understand this. It's so hard to get people to understand how to pronounce my name, much less spell it. So I love touch the screen, type in Damon, next, Jones, next, January, next, 16th, next. Is this you? Yep, it's me, next. I love it. Well, this lady did not like it. I don't know what's wrong with the society we live in. Can't somebody just talk to me? And I'm standing there and I'm thinking, who would want to talk to you, lady? I mean, she just worried about stuff that kid behind the cash register, he don't have any control over that. And I was the fourth one. Get this, the next person up. The first 3 had something to complain about to people that have no control over anything anyway. And I stood right there and I said, right here is 3 examples of pride. They don't care about anybody else's feelings. They don't care about what anyone else has to think. They don't care about the preacher in line waiting on them to just shut up, get the drugs, and get out. So these things, pride is judgmental. Don't be judgmental. It's embarrassing. But when an individual is proud, here's the next to the last thing. Pride will always seek the approval of others. If you do everything you do so somebody can pat you on the back, you've got a pride problem. And if that is your motivation, then I would circle the wagon and go back to the house, open the door, and go to my prayer closet and say, Lord, help me to not worry about what others think, but let me do what I do to please you. Because I'm telling you, if there is any one thing, if I were to be doing an interview right now and they ask me, Pastor, what do you think is the number one problem in America? Right here's my answer. Pride. Because most of us live in a microwave world. We want it really quick. I've been eating a lot of soup as of late for various reasons, but mainly this. And the other day I put the microwave, the soup. Linda made some fantastic soup, by the way. You're not invited to come over because it's all I got to eat. But she made some fantastic soup, and I put it in there, and I stepped away to do something while it was heating up, and I come back, and well, guess what? It wasn't even starting to warm up. Problem, I didn't turn the microwave on. So I turned the microwave on, and I go step away, and I come back. And I thought 55 seconds was enough. It wasn't. So and finally I got mad. I'm going to boil this stuff. I'm going to blow it all over the inside of this microwave and tell Linda I don't know what happened. But quickly, we want everything so fast. Isaiah 14 tells us the story of Lucifer, the bright morning star. Beginning in verse 12, it says, O Lucifer, how art thou fallen from the heavens, you that had all the beauty, all of the talent and everything, and because you said you wanted to be like God and ascend to the north and have your own people, own angels worship you, thou art descended into hell, to the grave, to the depths of eternity. You see, if you look at Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, you're going to see that the devil's issue was pride, and that's what brings so many Christians down, is because we have pride in our life and we do not allow God to speak to us. Now just think about this. 12 months. That means Nebuchadnezzar went through every month of the calendar, day in and day out. There were things that would happen that may remind him of the sermon he heard 12 months earlier. But he still wouldn't do it. God is not going to share the throne of your life with you. He's not going to share the throne with anyone. He's waiting on us to humble ourselves, to seek His face, to pray and repent and turn from our ways. Then He will hear from heaven. Daniel, did you really say that? Yes, Daniel, you said that. Yes, O King, I said that. I said that 12 months ago. I've walked by your office at the palace every day with a reminder of what I started telling you 12 months ago, 10 months ago, 11 months ago, whatever. And Nebuchadnezzar is like us. We will push it to the limit sometimes until God humbles us. But that's something to be thankful for, because if there's no chastisement, that means you don't belong to Him. But if there is correction, that means you are God's child and He wants to get you in line. So that is necessary. Pride. I had a proud moment in my life. I don't mind to admit it. I'm ashamed of it, but I did have a very proud moment in my life for a period of years, a couple of years. And I'm looking back on that now a decade plus later, and I can see why God broke me. I see why He allowed certain things to happen. Because He just looked down from heaven. He said, hey, I saved your soul. I'm not about to share the throne with you in your decisions. And guess what? He didn't. So search your heart. Let's bow our heads. So we prepare for a hymn of